What's up? I've finished another book. Let's talk about it. That book is Cradle Volume 1 Unsouled by Will Wight. Cradle follows our protagonist, Wei Linden, a member of the Wei clan in the Sacred Valley. He grows up with everyone around him, able to do all this super cool magic, but he failed his personality test when he was growing up, so now he's treated like scum by everyone. Even kind of his family, they more treat him like he's honorless than scum, but they don't treat him super great. Linden is a very classic shonen anime style character, where through sheer force of will and determination, he will go even further beyond or something like that. And honestly, it's really awesome to read. Approaching this from the perspective of having watched and read a lot of shonen style anime and manga, the fact that this story is told in a book form and I haven't really experienced a similar story in that way was really interesting, and I think it did a lot to support Linden as a main character. We're getting to spend a lot of time with his thoughts, and because of that, we get to see a lot of payoff for all of the hard work we're actually seeing him do. When the character's just on the screen and you see him tense up and you see they're hardworking, but you're not connecting with them in the way that you connect with a main character in a book. I'm way more connected with Linden than I would be with Ichigo or Goku. We also see through his thoughts that he's a really likable dude. A lot of times, shonen main characters can be bitter or angry or really just kind of full of themselves. He shows massive amounts of respect. He doesn't have a victim mentality like a lot of main characters do. And he really is working as hard as he can to be better than what destiny has in store for him. And it's through all of this hard work and all of the struggles that he has that he gets these level ups, this power up, and it feels way less like the story demands it and more like he deserves it. I think a lot of people might undercut just how good the writing in Cradle is because it's self-published and it's not exploring some deep moral quandaries. It's about a kid who was told he was going to be one thing, but he knows he can do so much more, and he wants to break those societal expectations. Will Wight does this super well. It's not a complex storyline by any means, but it's interesting to see here. Personally, I think this magic is super interesting, but this is also my first experience with cultivation style magic and shansha, so it might have a lot of tropes that go with that I'm not recognizing quite yet. But even if so, I think it all works really well. So if they're tropes, but I think they're good tropes. Now, for those who aren't really familiar with cultivation or shansha like I wasn't until only recently, cultivation is a Taoist concept by which humans can extend their lifespan and gain supernatural powers through the practice of martial arts and mystical arts involving a lot of meditation and the cultivation of ki. Many stories that follow these ideas have an end goal of obtaining some kind of godhood, and it's through gaining techniques and building power and strength. To some extent, Journey to the West and Dragon Ball Z definitely stem from this kind of philosophy. These aren't super traditional examples. I think they are examples of this power style. Would be the director from Hong Kong, Stephen Chow's movies like Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle. You see a lot of characters in those. They study the path of the Buddhist palm, or they have the technique of the mighty steel leg. These abilities have similar vibes, especially with how varied the cast and how varied the powers are. Similarly, in Cradle, you've got the Sacred Valley, where there are 3 different clans, and all 3 clans have 3 different paths for the techniques that they use and the different abilities that they might have, like the path of the Hungering Deep or the path of the Infinite Spear. But even within those paths, there's still 4 base types of the magic that all shares a similar progression of foundational student to copper to iron to jade, and then something that the Sacred Valley hasn't seen in 100 years, a gold rank sacred arts master. This is really my first dive into this kind of story, like I said before, and so it's hard for me to point something out and feel like it's been cliched in this story style. But I do think when I was reading this, I am familiar with shonen cliches, and I was seeing the tropes starting to get set up, I was seeing the plot starting to get built, I was seeing this world get formed, and I kind of was having an idea of where this story was going, and then it just hard 90s, and the world opens up, the magic expands. Honestly, that was the best part of this book, was realizing just how much more there was going to be. And while I was having fun with the story up until that point, that pivot point, I literally sat there and read the rest of the book without getting up. I think the action that we see in this book is done extremely well. The fights are really vivid and really dope. I think the character interactions are pretty strong. While we do have a lot of the secondary characters fall into more tropey roles, our main characters, the ones that we're going to be following throughout this story, like Linden, are extremely likable and extremely interesting. And in this kind of story, likability is critical because you as the reader have to be cheering for this person as they get stronger. Otherwise, it's just not going to be a good story. You've also got some Cosmere-ish vibes going on here, maybe. There's a subplot that kind of permeates throughout this whole story that looks like it's beings that have reached the end of this cultivation magic's advancement, and they really give off this sci-fi feeling, but I think that introducing them is really compelling for the reader because it not only produces the scale of magic in this world, but it gives us an end goal. It shows us exactly where Linden can get to. It's also like really dope. It's like you're in this starting area for an MMO, and then all of a sudden these level 80 end game raid boss boys that have just killed like all the mythic plus bosses, they come in and they're like, yo, what's up? I love me some level up fantasy with a lot of progression, so this got me hooked. The second book literally just arrived. I'm probably gonna be done with it before I finish editing this video, to be honest. Fairly short. I read the first one in about a 3-ish hour setting. It was about 76,000 words, roughly as long as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Sum it up, great, fun action read. Some really cool magic systems going on in here. Self-published author, so go support him. Extremely consumable, and there are a bunch of these out already, so you have a decent amount of story ahead of you if you wanted to read them. There's like 8 of them out. I loved it. I'll give it 6 out of 7 Dragon Balls. And if you're interested in this story from the stuff that I had to say, why don't you hit me with that like button? If you haven't yet, hit me with that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching my videos. I'll catch you in the next one. And until then, stay lit.